to welcome you and call to order the September 12th, 2017 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Got all 4 flags back. Thanks, Brandy.
Whoa.
All right, we are to the approval of the agenda. Are there any modifications or additions to the agenda this evening? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion of the agenda this evening? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We're to our first citizen comment period, and it's for anything that's on the agenda this evening. If you're here to, yes, sir. Please step to the microphone and identify yourself.
Sure. My name is George Fees, resident of McCormick Woods on Muirkirk Lane. Been there for 7 years. I'm coming to you really from that perspective, as well as in my profession, I've been both a civil engineer and a traffic engineer. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my concerns with the proposed ordinance for golf carts in the McCormick Woods community. I think my feeling is that the draft ordinance, the ordinance that you're going to consider tonight, does not address some of the safety concerns and issues that kind of are inherent partly in the design of the McCormick Woods roadway system and partly just as a result of the speed difference between golf carts and the general vehicle traffic in the community. I sent you all an email today. It got there pretty late probably for most of you, but I just wanted to highlight some of the issues with the streets. Virtually every arterial in McCormick Woods, including the almost 3 mile long section of McCormick Woods Drive, has a wide shoulder on one side and a narrow shoulder on the other. So the idea of pulling golf carts off onto the shoulder will work in one direction pretty well, but not so well in the other, because they have the potential to still stick out into the roadway. As you look at Hawkstone and Merrimack, both of those roads, and Glen Eagle as well, have a very narrow 2-foot range shoulder. So the idea of pulling off on those is also limited. The challenge for that conflict in speed is that if a driver wants to pass a golf cart that's on the roadway, they will not have the opportunity in many areas to safely pass because of sight distance. And so that creates the potential for stress and potentially a safety problem. I think the notion that golf carts could attain the 25 mile an hour speed, which is part of the draft ordinance, is actually appears to me to be a conflict with the state law, which says 20 miles an hour is the maximum allowable for the golf carts that are allowed in golf cart zones. So because of those things, I hope that the council will consider not passing this ordinance. And I just wanted to close with that thought.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Others wishing to comment this evening on anything on the agenda?
Name is Bjorn Bjorky, 5952 Troon in McCormick Woods. Here in support of the golf cart zone. I wanted to thank you for the process you went through to get it to this point. I believe that having a survey and having everyone have the right to vote in that survey that live in McCormick Woods is the correct way to go. And with the result that you got over 60%, I think it was pretty clear among most of the residents in McCormick Woods that they want golf carts and be able to drive them in McCormick. So thank you for the process you went through. I think it was fair and equitable, and I appreciate all of you. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Others wishing to comment?
Ken Gambich, 7073 Merkirk Lane. I appreciate the comments this evening. I too want to see people exist on the roads and be safe. I spend a lot of my time and the chief is not here, in the opposite lane. Whenever I see someone walking on the sidewalk or the sideways, either one, I get over for probably 200 yards just to give that person the sense that they're not going to get run over. And I've never even had to slow down or change my direction in the 10 years I've lived there. So going around a golf cart that's going roughly the same speed doesn't appear to be a problem to me. Does the statute, is it 25 or 20?
I'm going to defer to the attorney.
I was just looking at the statute again. Golf cart zones are allowed on streets having a speed limit of 25 miles per hour or less. But I wasn't familiar with the statute about the golf carts can only go 20 miles per hour.
Yeah, so I see
Got
that.
some time before we get to it for you to research that further, Chair.
What is our proposed ordinance says 25?
5.
And that's what the
Yeah.
golf cart zones allow. But I'd be interested in the 20 mile an hour, and we could certainly adjust that if that's the case. We would just ratchet it down to 20.
Yeah. All right.
Do I have 2 more minutes?
You still have a green light,
Can I change topics?
as long as it's on the agenda.
Oh, thank you for the tour of the cities. I really want to commend the city council and Mr. Bond. I thought that was excellent, and it's very encouraging to see such progressive thinking on behalf of our council. Thank you.
Mr. Kamich, can I ask you a question?
As long as it's on the agenda.
It's regarding your testimony where you said that
Yes,
you
sir.
go into opposing traffic lane.
Yes,
Did I hear
sir.
you correctly? So you would actually go left into the opposing traffic lane as opposed to expecting someone to go into the shoulder.
Yeah, you were asked a question, so we took your time limit off.
When someone is walking or riding their bike on either side, right, and coming either direction, I always, if I'm going this way and someone's coming this, I get over in the other lane and then come back around.
Okay.
And really for 200 yards, and I usually get a wave or a nod, right, because people appreciate that, and that's, I think, what our neighborhood's about, and I think that's how most people should deal with that situation. Did that answer the question?
You did, because I think one expectation was that the golf cart was expected to move into the shoulder so the car could pass in the lane, but you're saying they might not need to because the car could go into the opposing traffic lane.
It would be
Assuming there's no car coming in opposing traffic. So that is what you would tend to do, is you would go left of there's no line, I know, but you.
Yeah, left, yeah, yes. Correct. I don't know what the chief would say about that. But as originally drafted, it was intended that the golf carts would be over there. But then the community said, no, we don't want them there. So then we pushed it back into the street. And so if it were my city, I would put them in my neighborhood, I would put them in the lane. And then the golf carts could go slow around people. Yes, in the traffic.
It is your city.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Then that's what I would do. I'd put them over in the wide shoulders of McCormick Woods that probably were designed for golf carts, in part. Not to complicate it.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other public comment this evening for things on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on.
Just a second, Jay.
Oops.
Jay's standing up. I don't
Jay, are
know.
you standing up to comment, or are you? No, it's not. Okay, all right. We'll move on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion of the consent agenda item? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. We have 2 presentations this evening. The first is Ready for Kindergarten, and we have Melissa Prattinger. Did I get that correct?
Close. I'm Melissa Pittenger.
Pittenger.
Yep, and so you want to know my address too, 390 Golden Pond Street, Port Orchard, Washington. Can I hand these to
Certainly.
you guys? First of all, I have to tell you, I am very grateful. I called to see several years ago. I was here and I was able to do a 3-minute presentation about Ready for Kindergarten because I think it's really important that you as our leaders understand what's happening and why it's so important and so excellent. And so I called to ask for that opportunity again and was granted it. And then I think within 24 hours, I got a phone call back. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, saying we'd like you to do a 10-minute presentation. So thank you for that. So Ready for Kindergarten is a program that is provided for free to every family in South Kitsap School District. It was created originally in Kennewick, Washington. They had a goal. They wanted 90% of their third graders to be reading at level. And when they had that goal, that was a pretty bold move. Now that's become pretty common to see that. And so they worked really, really hard to do that in their schools. Their PE teachers, their music teachers, they were all teaching literacy, and they realized it was too late to start when kids were in kindergarten. And so they decided that the best way to help children to be reading at level was to support parents. And I think that is really the beauty of Ready. So Ready started in Kennewick. Now it's a national program. It's in, I think, 26 states. That number always changes with funding opportunities. In South Kitsap, we have one of the longest running, we're starting our 11th year, largest in the country. And National Ready sent someone to see us last year. And this is what they said. They said, we wish we could bottle what you're doing here because this is the way Ready should be done. So, yay us. And so that's a great thing. I am technologically challenged, so hopefully, yes, it worked. All right, so this is a graph of a huge study. It says 1.3, it's actually 1.8 million students. And as you're looking at that, you can see its reading scores divided into 4 quartiles and 2nd through 10th grade. So what do you see?
A graph.
Very good. Good, A+, good. What else do you notice?
A rainbow.
A rainbow, there you go. And that is a beautiful, lovely thing. Good, keep going.
Sorry.
You're good.
Has an upward trend.
Yes, and that is good news. As you see, everybody is doing that upward trend, and that speaks well of our education system. Every child is seeing a year's worth of growth every year. So those are all good things. What else do you see?
Is this a South Kitsap graph?
No, this is a national. Good question, thank you. Yeah, so do you see that the highest quartile, the 2nd grade student? Let me see if I can use this fancy pointer. See this guy right here? The children who are reading in that highest level in 2nd grade, their peers down here in the slower quartile, their friends are not reading at their 2nd grade level until 7th grade. It's a huge, huge gap. That's the 5-year gap. And if you talk to any kindergarten teacher here in South Kitsap or anywhere across the country, they're going to tell you that they see that gap on the first day of kindergarten. Some children come in at a 2 or 3-year-old level. If some of you are parents or grandparents, 2 or 3-year-olds, great people, but they're not really ready for a kindergarten classroom. They're speaking in phrases, not just shy, but scared, not able to follow directions or stay on task for any amount of time. And then you have kids who are up at a very mature level. Maybe they're reading or about to read. They're confident. They're ready to roll. And you have everything in between. So if you back this graph back up to 2nd grade, 1st grade, kindergarten, you see that 5-year gap that comes in. Now, this is the part that I have never said out loud at a Ready for Kindergarten meeting because I don't want to put this burden on parents, but it's important to realize that if you back that up, they call it the prison pipeline. Preschoolers who are not ready, many states in our country, that's how they decide, 3rd grade, how many prison beds they should have. You can tell that at preschool already, these kids who are starting, and now you can back it up. A child's understood vocabulary at 9 months predicts all of that. You keep going all the way forward. So this is a big thing about education, and of course that's a huge part of our community, but it also has things to do with law enforcement, with health, with lots of other pieces. So I wanted to set that up for you. Any questions? Okay. So the first 5 years are an amazing opportunity. You guys heard that people learn languages, children learn languages faster than adults do. The reality is children learn everything faster than adults do. When your kids were little, remember when they were 2 and you tried to put that t-shirt over their head that fit last week and this week it's not going because that melon has just, the brain triples in size. But it's not just their circumference, it's all that stuff that's going on. By the time a child is 3, 80 to 90% of their brain is developed. So that's a phenomenal thing to think about. Children have 2 options in life. They're sleeping or they're learning. And while they're sleeping, they're processing all the good things that they're learning. And so if we can optimize on those first 5 years, amazing things happen. When we talk about brain development, and Ready is really heavily based on brain development, the neurons that connect in your brain, children make, I used to always tell people 700 neural connections a second, which I thought was an astounding number. Till my husband, the sassy pants, said, Melissa, you're wrong. You can't tell me I'm wrong. I know what I'm talking about. Look it up. He was right. Children now, as the research tells us, make 1 million neural connections a second. Do you know how many neural connections you're making a second? Mr. Mayor? You're pruning. You're pruning. You're pruning, yeah. And that's what we're supposed to do. You know, you want to have a healthy plant, you have to prune, and so you're using the pathways that are the most important. So these years are super duper important. And if you look at that 3rd bullet point, strong relationships boost development and potential. So Ready for Kindergarten is really designed for parents to be the people who have children prepared and ready. And Ready is a great support for that. So I said Ready is designed based on brain research. It's also based on brain research for how we learn as adults. I suspect one of the reasons you have time limits is so that you are not here forever. After about 90 minutes, the adult brain is done. So you know the Charlie Brown teacher with that that's what happens to our brains. So our classes are 90 minutes long. We meet 3 times a year, once in the fall, once in the winter, and once in the spring. And in each of the different seasons, we're looking at a little bit of a different focus. So in the fall, we focus more heavily on literacy. In the winter, more on math. In the spring, more social emotional. But at the same time, we hit all 3 of those domains every time that we meet. And it's developmental so that parents come from birth to 5. So if you've got a brand new baby that you're bringing in, Ready for Kindergarten is for that parent. It's also for the parent of the child who's going to start in the fall of the next year. So, I don't know if you can hear me, but teacher talk. This is a B, this is a D, this is a P, this is a Q, or maybe even a 9. All right? And so if my baby, my baby's 10, but my baby, when she was 10, when she was a baby, she would lie down, she was Nika. If I hung her by her toes, she was Nika. If she was standing up, she was Nika. So she's a scientist, all children are scientists. They're discovering PD, BQ, 9. Orientation all of a sudden changes what a thing is. We've changed every rule they've ever known in their life, and we never told them. For an infant, what that means is lots of talk time, knowing that mom's eyebrows, dad's eyebrows, grandma's eyebrows are shaped differently. The brain is being programmed for that rich, good learning later. So there's all kinds of practical tips for families about ways that they can be prepared for school. My friend Candy just had twin girls this summer. She has a 3-year-old, she has a 2-year-old, and she has a 1-year-old. That's 5 children, 3 and under. Ready is designed for busy parents like Candy. Every parent is busy. No parent is twiddling their thumbs and thinking, what could we possibly do with our time today? Ready is designed to fit into an active family's life. So playing with a purpose for 10 minutes a day. So what that might mean is when you're in the grocery store and you're checking out with your kids there in the cart, instead of reading that John Travolta really is an alien, you may say, hey, will you help me get the groceries out of the cart? I'm thinking of something that starts with a p, p, p sound. Can you find it? Yeah, potatoes. Those are the kinds of things we're talking about doing with children. and reading. Reading with your kids for 20 minutes every single day. So I'm a mom. I'm also a teacher. I came to Ready very organically, and I fell in love with it because I sat in a classroom with facilitators who looked at me and said, Melissa, you are your child's first and best teacher. And because you are your child's first and best teacher, we're going to invest in you. That is what I love best about Ready for Kindergarten, because we say that to every parent who walks into our classrooms. So, I am not here to ask you for anything. Right now, Ready for Kindergarten is completely funded by Title I funds through the school district, which was a decision that our district made and has been a great, great blessing. James Heckman, I have to look. He's from Chicago. He's a professor of economics from the University of Chicago. And when you look and you see when you invest in early childhood education, you get a huge return back. And so that's an important thing, he says, to invest in, and it's a good thing for us to realize that's an important place for us to put our dollars. And then the second bullet is, I think, you know, that first graph that we showed with the kids who are behind. So Kennewick is where Ready started. Now, the Kennewick is where it's based. Ready says, we're the best. Anyway, their data says that 55% of children, and that I'm sure we would say the same, very similar results here in South Kitsap, come to kindergarten prepared to take everything on that a kindergarten teacher has ready for them. Parents of children, their kids who come to Ready, 79%. That is a huge jump when you're talking about an hour and a half of FaceTime 3 times a year with those parents. Because that hour and a half of FaceTime is nothing. What makes the big difference is what parents are able to do with and for their children. So that is really, I think that's my last slide, what Ready for Kindergarten is. If you are ready, look at that little pun I just pulled. If you are interested in coming to see what Ready is about, the pamphlets I passed around have the dates for all 3 seasons. We would love to have you come, be our guest. We could give you a tour during the program. You could sit in one session and see what it looks like. And I did lie to you. I said I wasn't going to ask for anything, but I am. As leaders in our community, one of the things that we hear most often is parents who say, I wish I had known about this sooner. And so that's my ask. If you would help to get that word out, it's a well-loved program that serves all of our community, regardless of where they are socioeconomically or what opportunities they've had in the past. So, any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Fred.
How many classes should a parent attend? I see that you have many dates here. Are each session like 4 classes in it? Or?
Excellent question. So we offer classes 4 times each season. Parents should come 1 time in each season. That was a good
It's
question.
just a 90-minute session.
Yep. Yep.
Oh.
The first time you come, it's a 30-minute orientation with me, which you got a little snippet of today to kind of get that overview umbrella. But then, yeah, it's just 90 minutes. And it really makes a huge, huge difference. And then, you know, that lower quartile of those kids who are struggling in school, those are the kids who, you know, not, this is a broad generalization, because there are kids who make those leaps and there are kids who make those jumps. But in a study of 1.8 million children, you don't see that on a graph. But those kids in that lower quartile are going to have more struggles with drug abuse and substance abuse. They're going to have more struggles with juvenile delinquency. They're going to have lots more struggles. And so if we can invest, and I got sassy, I was at a conference with state leaders talking about kindergarten readiness, and they were talking about all kinds of stuff and all kinds of programs, but they're not talking about investing in parents and the amazing return, because every parent loves their child. Every parent wants what's best for their child. And so if we can support them, that's a really powerful, powerful thing.
Wonderful. Other comments? comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Dina?
I'm familiar with the program. One of the things I wanted to observe is that it really, you get a cool binder and a bunch of tools and toys and kits that,
for you?
that your children get to enjoy, and it's very, very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, Scott, thank you. Scott's a ready dad. His kids are grown and I think still excelling. This is the binder. Basically, it's a curriculum that goes home. Every family who comes gets one. And then every time you come, you get all kinds of great ideas, but you also do get beautiful toys. And they're really nice. When, because I came into Ready as a parent, and I was at Toys R Us one day, and I was adding up, I'm like, ooh, we got some nice stuff when you add it all up. But then the other piece is that those toys, we call them tools, is that we ask families to keep them out of their child's reach. Because while those tools are beautiful, nice quality, fun things, the magic is not in those things. The parent is the child's first and favorite toy. And so when the parent has time to pull out that puzzle, to pull out that game, to pull out that puppet, that's where the real magic happens. And we also talk about other ways that parents can use other things that they already have at home to keep that learning going. Thanks.
It's a great program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Appreciate
Mr.
you
Collins
guys.
is a public speaker. You're quite dynamic. You
Oh.
did an exceptional job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we are on to our second presentation this evening, and it's a, oops, I'm sorry.
Jay just reminded me, I forgot to tell you, we have about 1,000 families a year who come through Ready for Kindergarten. So that tells you something about how well loved it is. And we offer it in English and Spanish. So another good thing to know. Thank you. Anything else I forgot? No, that's it. All right. Good work.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I know today is September 12th, and yesterday was actually September 11th, also Remembrance Day, so I felt it was appropriate to read a proclamation this evening that goes, whereas on September 11th, 2001, nearly 3,000 citizens of the United States of America were killed in New York City, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. as a result of an unprovoked terrorist attack. And whereas on that fateful September morning, we were reminded that the greatest strength in America is found in the hearts, souls of its citizens. As we witnessed police officers, firefighters, rescue personnel, members of the military, and private citizens demonstrating extraordinary courage by risking their lives to save innocent victims. On this day, our country came together to provide relief and bring hope to others. And whereas, despite the senseless loss of life and the horror witnessed by people around the world, we can now look at September 11th and see something more than pain. We can see strength, heroism, and unity. And whereas today and every day we should pray for the brave women and men who in uniform who are serving at home and abroad to protect their homeland in advance of liberty around the world. And whereas we will never forget the victims who perished that day, nor the amazing acts of selflessness. And whereas the nation remembers September 11th each year as Patriots' Day and as a national day of service and remembrance, which calls upon all Americans to participate in this observance through moments of silence, the flying of the flag of the United States at half-staff, as well as activities and tributes of remembrance. Now, therefore, I, Robert Putansu, Mayor of the City of Port Orchard, do hereby proclaim September 11th, 2017 as September 11th Remembrance Day. All right. Ready to proceed? We don't have a public hearing tonight. To our business items. First is 7A, a second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending the 2017-2018 biennial budget. Brandy, you want me to read that, or would you like to? Sure. Go ahead. Mr. Treasurer Martin's at a conference, so Brandy's filling in as treasurer tonight.
Actions involving amendment to the budget take 2 readings. This is a second reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 40-16, adopting the 2017-18 biennial budgets, subsequently amended by ordinance number 10-17, ordinance number 13-17, ordinance 25-17. The public may comment on the amendment following its presentation. The city's budget is written to capture revenue and expenses over the fiscal period. During the biennial period, changes to the budget in both revenue and expenditures needed to be recognized by a budget amendment. The city issued $5,865,000 limited general obligation bonds for a portion of the cost of the Tremont Street widening project. The bonds closed on August 10, 2017, with the first bond debt service payment due in August of 2018. The resulting $449,514.04 debt service payment was contemplated during the authorization of Ordinance 21-17 relating to contracting indebtedness. Earlier this year, the city weighed the cost of improvements to the City Hall Annex located at 720 Prospect Street and provided a budget amendment of $180,000 for Real Estate Excise Tax Fund number 109. However, costs exceeded that amount by $107,000 for the completed capital work and other costs requiring an additional budget amendment to close out the project. The budget amendment ordinance reflects the following. 1, $12,000 from the current expense fund number 001 to 720 Prospect expenses. Number 2, $95,000 for revenue from Real Estate Excise Tax Fund 109 to Capital Construction Fund number 302. Number 3, $95,000 from the Capital Construction Fund number 302 for 720 Prospect expenses. Number 4, $319,500 from the Street Fund number 002 to Bond Redemption Fund number 206. Number 5, $130,500 from the Storm Drainage Utility Fund number 421 to Bond Redemption Fund number 206. And number 6, $450,000 from the Bond Redemption Fund number 206 for debt payment. The relationship to the comprehensive plan is that 720 Prospect Street City Hall Annex and the Tremont Street widening project. The Council Finance Committee recommends adoption of an ordinance amending the 2017 and 18 biennial budget, and staff recommends the mayor open up to the public comments on the budget amendment.
This time we'll take comments on the budget amendment. I don't believe it's a public hearing. So
Just comments.
Just taking comments. Anybody wish to comment on any of the amendments to the biennial budget? Okay, we'll close the public comment period on that.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending the 2017-2018 biennial budgets for the city of Port Orchard.
Second it.
A motion and a second. Comments or questions on the budget amendments? All in favor of the proposed budget amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries to amend the budget. We are on to our second business items this evening, which is the adoption of an ordinance adopting a new chapter to Title 10 of the Port Orchard Municipal Code to establish a designated golf cart zone in McCormick Woods. Mr. Cacciardi, will you recuse yourself this evening?
Please, thank you.
Okay. So, with that, Sharon, did you have a chance to look at that
I
statute?
did, yes, I did. So, yeah, to start off, this gentleman, and I apologize, I didn't catch his name, he's correct. The RCW 4608-175 that allows the city to establish a golf cart zone references 4604-1945, which defines golf carts. And golf carts are defined as vehicles, among other things, that don't go more than 20 miles per hour. So that's just the definition of the golf carts. Most golf carts apparently originally manufactured only go about 20 miles an hour. So I think that was the basis for that definition.
So when I look at the definitions at 10 point, it's in the very first section, it says, for sporting purposes as a speed obtainable in 1 mile, not more than 25 miles an hour, we should amend that to 20 miles an hour.
Yes, that is correct.
So if someone makes a motion, that should be.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance adopting a new chapter to Title 10 Port Orchard Municipal Code, Vehicles and Traffic, to establish a designated golf cart zone in McCormick Woods as presented and discussed.
Okay, well, and do you want to amend that to reference the 20 miles an hour?
Yes, I'd like to amend that so that section 10.50.010 reads 20 miles an hour instead of 25 miles an hour.
I'll second it.
There's a second from Mr. Clausen. Further discussion or questions?
Discussion?
Yes,
Um,
Mr. Councilmember.
I
Chang.
appreciate the testimony that we got regarding safety because I am not familiar with golf carts. And I was interested in the interaction between a slower moving vehicle and a vehicle that a car that we anticipate probably goes in excess of the posted speed limit and how that would react. So I've heard that concern, and I'm certainly sensitive to safety. As I look at 10.50.030, we're talking about obedience to rules of the road traffic control devices. It seems to me that it's a suggestion that the cart moves over to the shoulder, which is certainly one method of a car going around is for the shoulder move over. But from what we heard earlier this evening, it sounds like what often happens is that the car is the one that moves out of the way of the cart. I guess you could call it some sort of a traffic calming exercise if it works. So given the amount of input that we have received through the HOA and how they had a rather precise survey, I think we have heard from a good deal of people. Did we hear from everyone? Probably not. It was probably the most cost-effective and timely way to get input. So I'm comfortable with giving this a try, and I will be supporting the ordinance.
Mr. Diener.
So the testimony that we heard earlier tonight presented an example of a cart and a car either having to wait back or hopefully not pass on a curve. But, I liken that situation to coming along a road and seeing a biker who's not, being vigilant about where they should be on the road and having to slow down until there's an opportunity to pass safely. And so I think we've got people out there who will exercise common sense. The other thing is we had testimony from the chief and from Public Works and others who I would consider experts. And what they said, they have to own. And so I placed a lot of value in what was presented to us by staff. And so I'm comfortable with this as presented, and I'd like to give it a run.
Other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Lugarelli.
Well, I have had safety concerns myself about this, and having been at the meeting where McCormick Woods people from both sides presented, asking questions, and since then having those questions answered and viewing the results of the survey, I too am willing to give it a try to vote on this, but I really would love to see maybe in a year or so for it to come back and see how things are going. Because I too, if golf carts, and I heard from some gentlemen that said the average speed is actually 17 to 19 miles an hour for a golf cart. I wonder how that's going to play out on McCormick Woods Drive. Whereas in the interior of McCormick Woods, I really don't think there's going to be any problems at all. So I'm voting yes now because I think the residents are asking for this, but I would love to take a look at it in about a year to see how well it's going out there.
No more questions or comments? Got a motion? Oh, yes.
No, I would just say, I don't live in McCormick Woods, but I walk out there all the time. I probably walk out there, during sometimes, 3 to 4 times a week. And it's a wonderful place to walk, much more than the sidewalks in downtown Port Orchard. I find the traffic out there quite calm compared to what we have in the city of Port Orchard. So I'm supportive of having the golf carts in the drive lane rather than the pedestrian lane, because those pedestrian lanes are really used a lot. And I too will be supporting this because the residents have indicated they would like it,
And if we do encounter problems with it, we can surely go back and alter the ordinance or do what we need to do to make sure it's safe.
I know one of the steps in this, even though if we pass this tonight, Public Works has to get some signs posted. They're required per the RCW at the entrances, both entrances to McCormick Woods to put drivers on notice that, it is a golf cart zone, so. Yes, Mr.
Will that
Peter.
be done within 5 days as the effective date of this ordinance?
They know that this is coming.
Okay.
I think they're aware of it. Mark and I have already discussed some language for the signs, so we'll make it happen as fast as we can. Other comments or questions? Okay. We'll be voting on adoption of an ordinance, adopting a new chapter to Title 10, Port Orchard Municipal Code, Vehicles and Traffic, to establish a designated golf cart zone in McCormick Woods. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to our next item. Okay, we are on to 7C, adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 5.6, fireworks. Mr. Bond.
Yes, thank you. The Department of Community Development Permit Center began operations in July of 2017 as the city's primary permit application and processing center. Currently, the Finance Department receives permit applications for fireworks sales and discharge in accordance with POMC Chapter 5.60 fireworks. City Council has requested that the DCD Permit Center begin receiving and processing these applications instead of the Finance Department. Therefore, an ordinance to redesignate this responsibility has been prepared. Staff recommends that the City Council vote to approve the revisions to POMC Chapter 5.60 as presented.
Yes, Mr. Donlin.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance adopting the revisions to Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 5.60, as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. I just want to correct, it wasn't at council's direction. Actually, this came to one of the committees, and we pulled it, and then we dealt with it administratively. And what we discovered was there was an application, a check being collected by finance, and all finance was concerned with was the check and not what was on the application. So now this is going to go through our permit center. They're truly going to look at the application and then hand the check over to finance, which is a little better checks and balances than what we had before. So we have a motion and a second. Do I hear, are there any questions or concerns? Okay, we'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance where are we? Motion to adopt an ordinance adopting a revision of Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 5.06, as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are to the 7D, approval of the August 22nd council meeting minutes. Yes, Councilman Lucarelli.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the August 22nd council meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I think we'll have one abstention. Okay, yes, two.
Be
Oh,
abstaining.
correct, there's two. So be voting on the August 22nd council meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And two abstentions. Okay, we are to the report of the council committees. Finance Committee, Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I didn't bring my notes from the previous Finance Committee meeting.
Because we didn't have one.
We have one coming up, I know that,
Yeah.
but from the previous one, I can't remember if I reported on it the last meeting or not. But regardless, we have a meeting scheduled for September 29th at 7:30 a.m. here at City Hall.
And Economic Development and Tourism?
Yes, we met Monday. It was a fairly short meeting. We started the meeting with resuming our conversation with the business leaders from the Port Orchard Chamber of Commerce and the Port Orchard Bay Street Association. And we basically reviewed, at that point, the webinars, the Roger Brooks webinars that we've been watching. the other thing is, the chamber did have some questions regarding the application for A-boards. And we invited them to get whatever alterations they wanted to that to the city clerk so that we could put it on our work study agenda at the same time we're looking at the feather signs. So we can't help them if we don't know exactly what it is they want to change. So they were going to bring that forward. And then our regular business meeting only had one item on it, and we basically talked about business retention within the city and specifically downtown.
Thank you for your report.
And because sometimes you forget to have me talk about KRCC.
Why don't you do that right now?
I thought I would. The Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council, we are beginning our look into the federal highway funding, transportation funding that will be coming next year. And so we will be working with PSRC on their projection, or their project selection criteria committee, and bringing that forward to KRCC. The other thing that I wanted to have everyone mark their calendars down for November 9th, it's a Thursday, and I'm not sure the location yet, but that will be our annual legislative reception. And there will be an hour pre-meeting, at which time we will present some of the information that we saw at the retreat regarding anticipated future transportation corridors in, throughout the county, and what they will look like as we move forward. And I'm trying to remember the other things we got at the retreat, but there will be a condensed presentation for everyone, as well as an orientation for new council members. So that's what I had to say.
Okay, and thank you for the KRCC report. Maybe we need to just add those onto the agenda, so I'm about checking things off as I'm going down the list, so it might help for other agencies to be on there. Utilities Committee?
Yes, our next meeting will be September 25th, 9:30 a.m. here at City Hall. That was moved from the 18th, so just to let everyone know. Then Sewer Advisory Meeting is September 20th at 6:30, and that's going to be at the West Sound Utility District on Lund.
Land use is current on its report outs. We're meeting on September 20th at 7:30 at the new DCD offices in their conference room.
Lodging tax, do you have anything to
Lodging
report?
tax, there were 12 applications received, and the committee will be meeting with applicants either later this week or next week.
And anything on chimes and lights?
Yes, our next meeting is September 25th at 3:30 p.m. here at City Hall.
Okay. Bring your sleeping bag next week, because we've got a lengthy work study agenda, so be here a while.
You can provide me dinner?
No, I'm not. So, but, we could work on that. So, on to the mayor's report. Since just wanted to, we had some very good discussions and meetings about the McCormick Woods Development Agreement. If you haven't been briefed, I know it's been at the Utility Committee, and we have a number of improvements in our capital facilities plan related to sewer and water that are our responsibility, that are a total of about $16 million. We aren't going to get them fast enough for the folks that are out there creating homes out there, and so we're negotiating an agreement where they will build these improvements for us, meet their timelines, and in turn they would get the connection fees that they would normally pay in return. So we're getting much closer, and we hope in the next 45 to 60 days we'll have that agreement in place and before you. So just want to give you an update there. I visited the Spyglass in Bremerton. I don't know if I was passing pictures around. Maybe Brandy could just throw them up on the screen. I meant to give them to you. But it's a very nice project over in Bremerton. And I hope that all of you folks found the field trip we went on Friday as beneficial as I did, and I just wanted to give Nick some kudos. He did a
Yes.
phenomenal job.
Good job.
His staff were
Kudos, Nick.
very well prepared, and it was highly organized, and we got back at a decent hour in traffic. But so this is the a similar project what I would like to see downtown that has it's a multifamily dwelling in downtown Bremerton, and the rooftop patio is common space for all of the tenants, and it's quite nice. It's got common barbecues, phenomenal views up there. And it's very, very nice project. Other things, Rockwell Park, I hope that we're closed by Friday. I saw some emails going back and forth today. The bank that did the reconveyance signed the reconveyance and got it back, but there was a couple other pieces of paper that didn't come back in the packet, so we're chasing those down. But the wires have been sent. It's money sitting in escrow. We're just tracking a couple of signatures down, and we'll have that piece of property finally closed. As you know, we've got a park grant for that, and as well as our easements for the pathway. I got the quote back from Mr. Dorsey from PSE on the undergrounding from Blackjack Creek to our pocket park. Mr. Titus is going to be required to underground his utilities, and he's tearing that building down. We've got a 3-foot sidewalk that's going to get turned into a 6-foot sidewalk. And it'd be really nice to put our transmission mains underneath that sidewalk. So, if you're ready, our share, which is 40% of the Schedule 74 with PSE, is $300,000. So I've added that into the mix of the wish list for the biennial budget amendments. I wish we had more money in REIT. That would be the logical place, but we've done an office building and some other things in there. So we got about half of it in REIT, and we'll be looking for some other ways to try to fund that, because I think this is probably a once-in-our-lifetime opportunity to put those power lines underneath the ground while there's a project going on in front of it. So I hope we can find a way to make that happen. There's a sinkhole on Salmonberry and Bethel. I don't know if anybody's seen that. Our attorney wrote them a letter that by September 1st they had to take action to fix that problem. They have not. The next step would, I just want everybody's kind of heads shaken. So our abatement fund, we put $50,000 in it for this year and $50,000 next year. We've just got the bids for the house on Canyon Lane, I think it is, and we should be able to do that just under the $50,000 with the legal fees. If we go to court and continue that process, which I think we need to, if we don't, this doesn't get corrected, the road's going to flood and compromise our road. We're probably looking at $100,000 if they don't fix it. If we had to step in and fix it ourselves, according to Mark. Yes.
Are attorney fees recoverable?
We would, unlike the Canyon Lane, we have the code in place now that we would lien this piece of property for all of our costs associated with doing this. I hope that us going to court and getting an injunction against them would move them along to do this themselves. I think they can do it at a much lower cost than we can, but I think it's something that we should continue this process. We told them we were going to take action on September 1st if they didn't do something, so I think we probably need to act. So I'm not seeing anybody say no. So
What is the value of that property, Rob?
I would suspect it's quite a bit more than $100,000. It's a corner lot on Bethel and Lund, or Bethel and Salmonberry.
And it's owned outright?
I don't know that, but we would have a lien.
And be how many in line? I'm just
We don't.
wondering.
We haven't done a title report to know the answers to that.
Okay, I'm just wondering. Thank you.
But we could be in line. You're right, but we would have a valid lien for what we did on a piece of property. So, okay, that's my report for this evening.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Could we circle back to design tours?
Yes,
or the design tour?
absolutely.
So the design tour that we did on Friday was very well done, but I think we owe it to the public to show how our money was spent on that. And so at the appropriate work study where we start kicking off discussion about design guidelines, I think it would be appropriate to also show what we saw on
Okay.
Friday.
Okay, certainly.
It was great. I think people will really like what they see.
I was very impressed.
Loved it.
So as you know, this is the first step in a number of things we need to do. I mean, we need better design standards. I mean, growth management extra driving that we become more dense, that, we accept more development. But unfortunately, we have a lot of developers in our community that don't do quality projects. And so that's what those design standards are about, I think, is to get us the quality that we deserve. And we saw some good examples of that on Friday. So those are the things we need to get into those standards, and then we'll, hopefully be comfortable in, creating more dense environments, we're lifting some parking standards, and doing some other things to, create some development that we want. So, all right. We are to report of department heads. Do you have anything, Mr. Bond? Okay, Sharon? Okay, Brandy?
So I just wanted to share with you guys that Waste Management, I know I had, So Waste Management had recently conducted an audit of citizens of Port Orchard who have not had garbage service. So as you know, or may know, that the City Council from 1956 mandated garbage service for the city of Port Orchard. And so they conducted an audit, and there is a handful of residents that have not been having their service picked up by Waste Management and probably have been doing it on their own. And we have had many calls at City Hall wondering why and what's changed and how come. And so a lot of them have asked for council members' email addresses and phone numbers. And so we have sent some your way. So just FYI, we've also encouraged them to come in and speak at tonight's council meeting. Last I heard, I think we were going to have about 10 show up tonight. So I'm not sure what happened, but just FYI, we're getting the calls. I did put in a request for Waste Management to find out what that audit result came back as. Are we looking at 5 people, or are we looking at about 500? So once I get that number or that report, I'll pass it on to you guys. So that's.
I'm sorry, Brandy, is this audit for Waste Management not picking up residents' garbage?
It's an audit of residents not having an account with Waste Management for them to pick up the service.
So they didn't have the service, nor were they being charged for the service.
So, and our code requires that they have an account.
Why would residents complain about that? Oh, because they don't want to have an account?
Cost.
Okay.
Mr. Clausen?
I just wanted to share with the council, I was not on the council when that was adopted. So
Elected the next year.
All right. Is that all you have?
My comment was just to make sure that it's not a new policy. It's been around for many, many years, and unfortunately, we have some people that, just back in that time didn't do what others should do, and so unfortunately, we have to make it consistent among the residents and a health and sanitation issue. So,
And I believe
that's what I explained.
part of our contract with Waste Management is for all, the whole city to be on part of that. So, okay, thank you for your report. We are to our second citizen comment period. Yes. Oh, Mr. Clausen, yes.
Oh, I just had one thing for the good of the order, and just extend an invitation on September 30th between 11 and 1. If you come downtown, you can help us celebrate the Carlisle's 100th birthday.
Oh, okay.
Well, nobody else wanted to join me. I accepted the invitation to go to Fire Ops 101, so they're going to run me through, I don't know, fiery hoops and whatever else they're going to do with me.
Well, while you're doing that, I will be down eating hot dogs and cake.
Thanks for sharing.
We'll save one for you.
Save me a hot dog for later.
Not a hot dog.
Okay.
Put it on your desk.
Any other good of the orders before I get to citizen comments? Okay, we're to citizen comments. Yes.
Hello, Jerry Harmon. Something came up on my mind when I saw the word fireworks here. In previous years, a year before the 4th of July, a city has to pass some sort of legislation if the fire danger is intense, and I haven't heard it mentioned this year. And with the number of fires that we have.
We have that, I believe we have that on our code, and it's at the discretion of the fire marshal to declare that emergency.
Okay, so you
Just-
don't have to do it yearly like it was
Correct.
before. Okay, that was. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, excuse me, on the waste management, and one of the things that I ran into, and it was many years ago, was the fact that we had a rental until my sister and her husband could move up here. And when it was sitting unoccupied, we had to pay for garbage because we had water. And I tried to cut the garbage off while it was unoccupied and was told by the city that I couldn't because we had water. But when you're showing a house, and if you don't have running water, people have to use your restrooms. There's just incidences where you need to have water in your home if for no other reason than if there's a fire or something, you have a source of water for that. But we couldn't discontinue, and it sat for about 3 months many, many years ago, but we still had to pay waste management. And there should be something when a house isn't being occupied that you could at least put a hold on it until it is occupied on that. But water is important in a rental, just to keep it clean and that for showing. So just thought I would bring that up.
I just experienced that same situation in City of Bremerton, where it's required in their code too, whether the house is occupied or not. You have to continue to pay for
Waste management?
Waste management service, yes. So, other comments? Yes, sir.
I want to hand you this letter, a copy of it, so that you can see what I received, because I'm part of the concern over the waste management issue. I have several copies. You can
Okay.
share them.
Make sure Brandy over there gets one. She's the most important person in the room.
Important person that I talked to the other day on the phone.
Probably not, probably one of my staff.
Okay, my name is Ken Durham, and I live at 943 Southeast Blueberry Road. And this is my third time to one of your meetings recently, having not been to one for all the 20 years I've lived in the house I'm currently in. I'm a teacher at Sedgwick Junior High, and about almost 20 years ago now, I started working with the students there on recycling. And I've continued to do that. The only other meeting like this that I've been to was a county commissioners meeting when I was invited to receive an award for the recycling work that I've done there. My house is currently at a point where, and I have not had waste management picking up garbage at my home for 20 years, at the 20 years I've lived there. I'm down to a point now in my house, and part of what I understand is overall we're trying to reduce our footprint in terms of our usage of materials and supplies. My house doesn't generate one garbage can full of garbage in an entire year. Between composting, recycling, and reusing, I don't generate one garbage can. And so when I got this letter this weekend, I was concerned. I'm not a person who dumps my garbage on the street. I'm not an irresponsible person. And because I've become so efficient at it, now I'm being penalized. I'm being forced to pay for a service that I absolutely won't use, unless you're going to tell me to stop recycling, to stop composting, so that now I can put something in a garbage can out at the street. And it makes no sense to me. And I understand it's in the city's code, but I guess my question is, why can't that be altered? Why can't you alter your city code so that it allows for people, if you go to Safeco Field right now, they're at about a 90% complete compostable, recyclable, reusable. So waste management should go in there and say, excuse me, but we need to charge you because we need to charge you for all that other stuff that you're not doing. You're not, it's absurd to look at this from this perspective in the context of the fact that we're trying to teach people to reduce the amount of waste we're putting into landfills. And yet you're telling me I have to, or at least I have to pay for a service that I'm not even going to use. And I guess I'd really like you to take a look at that in terms of the city code, because there need to be, I understand, my neighbor, one of my neighbors and I go out and pick up the whole neighborhood where we live. Mr. Morris usually picks up the garbage. I usually pick up the recyclable materials. But we keep the streets clean in our area. And that doesn't impact. But I still am at a point where now I'm going to be required. And so when I called the city office to find out, I said, well, what happens if I blow this off and ignore it? Do you know what the response is?
Fine.
The city code and the fine structure for that is I would be fined $500 per day. Do you realize how ridiculous that is? Because I'm being responsible, and I really don't want to pay, and it's not that I can't pay the $18 a month or whatever it is, okay? I have a good job, I have a decent job. I can pay the money, but it's a principle of I've been working toward getting my house so that it has a zero waste, and now I'm being penalized. That makes no sense. Please take a look at it. Please revisit it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Others wishing to comment?
Yeah.
Okay, we are headed into an executive session. 15 minutes? 20? Nick says 20 minutes, and regarding potential litigation.
Recused from that.
You're recused.
Oh, okay.
So no action will be taken after the executive session.